Coping refers to any strategies that are used to handle, overcome, or avoid stressors. It can include emotional strategies such as downplaying the importance of the event, cognitive strategies such as distracting oneself from thinking about the issue, or behavioral strategies such as attempting to tackle the stressor. The fight or flight response illustrates how our body adapts to allow for a behavioral coping response of either fighting or running away. There are also a huge number of potential coping responses, only some of which we will touch upon today. Our coping response to a stressor is also not a single moment of choosing a response and following through, but a dynamic process whereby we shift our coping strategies based on new information, progress towards overcoming the stressor, or even how we think about the stressor. Now, researchers have modeled the coping response as a 5-step process. First, a stressful event needs to occur. As we saw in our definition of stress, this can be a real event, such as a pop quiz, or it can be an imagined event, such as the thought of getting a bad grade. Once the real or imagined event occurs, the second step is the decision whether this event is in fact stressful. For instance, you might just happen to have studied the right material the night before, or maybe you just don't even care about the grade. Therefore, this event, which might be stressful for some, is not stressful for you. This process is called appraisal, and in one of our videos we will spend more time elaborating on what factors play into our appraisal and the difference between primary versus secondary appraisal. The third stage is deciding on what coping strategy is currently best for the circumstances. Fourth, once the type of coping strategy has been decided, the individual has to engage in the effort to follow through on that task. For instance, deciding to cope with potential bad grades requires putting in the time to study, but this is often challenging. And finally, individuals evaluate the success of their coping efforts and either redirect their efforts or continue with the current strategy. This last step is particularly important to the dynamic process of coping because we are constantly reevaluating what is working, which leads us to new perceptions of events, new appraisals, new coping responses, and new follow-through on those coping tasks. So last week we discussed the first stage of this coping response, that is, what is stress and what are examples of potentially stressful events such as catastrophes, stressful life events, and daily hassles. Well, in the next video, we will cover appraisal and some variables that affect how we see situations as stressful or manageable.